This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Marcy Mara, as David Gatambuguthu likes to say. It's marvellous to have you all here with us live, of course. My name is James Hendry, and a special warm welcome to the kids watching today. They come from an unpronounceable school in Massachusetts, ages 8 to 11. I've forgotten the name. I will look it up at some stage and try and endeavour to get my very small brain around actually saying it. It's lovely to be back here in East Africa. We are in Kenya. For those of you who don't know where the Masai Mara is, it's Shikla School in Massachusetts. Lovely to have you with us. Please ask us any questions you'd like to, kids. You just ask your teacher. He or she will then tell us, and we will then do our best to answer your questions. We're going down towards where two giraffes fought each other to the death the other day. And apparently there have been vultures and hyenas and lions around the two dead giraffe, and so we'll go and see what we can find around there. Otherwise, we're just going to marvel. We're just going to be absolutely blown away by the beauty of this country here in East Africa. Isn't it just gorgeous? There's an elephant wandering through the grasslands, just walking under those hugely picturesque Balanites trees or Egyptian date trees. Just gorgeous. Alia, you're wondering about wildebeest, which we haven't seen just yet, and how many there are in a herd. Well, you know, back at Djuma, where you'll go shortly, where you'll meet some of my friends working there, that's in South Africa, the herds are anything from sort of 2 animals up to about 20 or 30. Here, they can be anything from about 2 or 3 wildebeest, that would be a tiny herd, up to, are you waiting for it, 10,000 or so in one herd. So they move around in huge numbers here, but they're not always here. Sometimes they're down in the Serengeti in Tanzania, and that's where most of them are at the moment, I'm led to believe. There's also a giraffe very, very far away, just to the right of where the elephant was. Yeah, somewhere there. There it is. Isn't that lovely? That's called a Maasai giraffe, and there's a game drive vehicle in the background there. That Maasai giraffe, obviously a lot more alive than the two we're going to see a little bit later. And probably quite pleased that it isn't being chased by some of the lions of this area. Isn't that lovely? Now, you've obviously seen lots of pictures of Africa, I'm sure, and you've probably seen lots of documentaries of Africa. And so many of them are shot in this absolutely gorgeous place. Righty, let us go back to South Africa now, to the western fringes of the great Kruger National Park, where Sydney Fumani Mikosi is waiting to greet you with the most common antelope that they have over there.
Look at that. You can see this animal is trying to get a little bit of leaves available by that tree there. This is an impala. It's quite a lovely animal. A very, very good afternoon to the kids. I am Sydney Efumurani Mikosi, and I'm traveling with Senzo, who is my camera operator this afternoon. We are here with the lovely impalas, animals who feed on grass and leaves. So you can see they're all feeding at the moment. There is not much grass available, and the leaves as well. Some of the trees are starting to bring back the leaves, so that is why they are concentrating there. So you can see the tree that this animal is feeding on is not having the leaves at all, but there he is trying to pick up some of the leaves which are starting to come out now. So that is a female impala. The male impalas carry horns. So I'm just going to drive further so that we can see the other ones who are right now hiding at the back. It's quite a very big herd. So I can see here on my right side there is some very big birds. So the wild dogs It's not easy for those kind of predators to attack us while we are by the vehicle. But if that happens, I've got to be treated, because this kind of animals, they do carry some of the diseases which can easily be transmitted from just a bite. So I'm just trying to check here. I can see there's quite a lot of vultures there. Big birds, they are right on top of that tree. So now let's go to Tristan.
Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to South Africa. As Sydney is driving around, so are we. My name is Tristan, as Sydney mentioned. I've got Craig on the vehicle this afternoon, and well, what we're busy doing right now is we're in an area where I had a big male leopard last night, and he was very, very hungry last night. He was hunting all kinds of things, and so I'm going to try and see if I can find him somewhere here. This is the perfect place for a leopard to spend time. We're down in a little riverbed system. As you can see, the riverbed runs just on my left hand side there, and on each side of that is really dense, thick bush, and it is the perfect place for leopards to be hunting. And last night the conditions were absolutely perfect for him to be out and about and looking for food. So you find that because it was cloudy and rainy and windy last night, it would have made it very difficult for prey animals like the impala that you just saw to be able to hear this leopard coming, and so he would have been using that to his advantage. So we're going to check where I left him and see maybe if he was hunting. There was a herd of impala that weren't far away last night when I left him, and so maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to pick him up somewhere in this area. That's the idea anyway. So Logan, a leopard is a very special animal. Now I'd say that not only because they're my favorite, but also because they're amazing in that they're able to hunt at any time. So they are what's known as opportunistic, and so any time of the day that something will present itself. So if, let's say, they walk out of here and it's middle of the night and something comes across their path like an impala, or if it's bright sunshine at 12 o'clock in the sort of middle of the day, then they will hunt. They'll take any opportunity, and the reason why they can do it is because a leopard camouflages very well. So even though it's better for it to hunt at night because it's easier to move around without being spotted, it still can blend into its environment well with the spots and the color of its coat. And so even during the day they'll find little thickets and then they'll ambush those prey animals as they come past. So they are able to hunt at any time of the day. It's just that they prefer normally to hunt just before sunrise and then just after sunset. That's their kind of preferred time, and that's normally because it's a little darker and it's easier for them to then move around and be able to position themselves better without being seen. It's much harder for these prey animals to see at night than it is during the day. Now, there's a very pretty bird that's just in front of us. I hope it's not going to fly. Well, no, it went into the grass now, unfortunately. So Miley, unfortunately, impalas get hunted by everything. So there was a little bird that was there, but it's now dropped into the grass, so we can't see it anymore. But Miley, pretty much everything out here will hunt impalas. Remember that when impalas give birth, they're very, very small, the little babies. The lambs are quite tiny, and so everything from some of our eagles will hunt them, to big snakes like pythons, and then all the way through all of the other predators. So caracal, leopards, lions, wild dogs, hyena, cheetah, they will all go after impalas. So impalas unfortunately get hunted by everything. Also crocodiles if they go near water, so they have a tough time of it, and especially in this area you'll find that they get hunted a lot because of the density of predators. It's a lot of leopard and lions and hyenas out here, and so the poor little impalas, because they're the most common and the one that we see the most, they unfortunately get hit the hardest in this area. Right, now this is exactly where I had that leopard last night, so I'm gonna have a little look around and check, see if there's anything happening. While I do that though, let's send you across to my friend Jamie, who wants to say hello to all of you.
I do want to say hello, 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 hello. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Sebastian is on camera with me, back from a very short holiday. And a warm welcome to the kids joining us this afternoon. I hope you are super excited to go on this safari. You've met almost everyone else on the team. Apparently Tristan is searching closely for lions. Now my plan on this cold and blustery and windy day is to go and search for some hippopotamus. Now searching for hippopotamus is a lot easier than searching for a lion, because generally at this time of day a hippopotamus is where it should be, which is in the water hole, because of course hippopotamus spend most of their day in the water and they only come out of the water at night. So what we're going to do is we're going to head along to the biggest water hole in this area, because as you can see, I'm sure you've noticed, very brown. The landscape is very brown. Oh, there's a roof, by the way, because it's been raining, so that's to help to keep us dry. I'm very happy with the roof because this afternoon it caused me to smack myself in the face. So I've got a sore eye, but I will survive. I promise I will survive. Now there's lots of different signs that we look for when we're looking for animals out here, and there's lots of amazing different creatures as well. Sydney has found the cleanup crew of the wilderness.
So I've got the birds which are responsible to clean this environment. These are the vultures, quite very big birds. These are the ones who are normally taking all these lions' remains if the hyenas are not around. Sometimes they get to a place first, sometimes hyenas got there first, sometimes they both get to the place at the same time and also interact with each other. So I'm here just to investigate if there is a dead animal, because these animals, these birds, can be a very good sign of something dead. So I can see that. So now let's go to James with a small antelope.
I have got still a lovely reedbuck. There it is, not found at Juma. I wonder what it's seen. It's suddenly become slightly alarmed, and I've never seen one in this area before. And Manu, who's on camera this afternoon, I forgot to introduce him, I'm very sorry about that, said he too has never seen a reedbuck in this area. So reedbuck in this particular area is a solitary antelope, which is a little bit unusual for an antelope of this size. They're about the same size as impala. They weigh probably in the region of 140 pounds or so. I'll just check that for you quickly to make sure I'm not telling you a lie. Yeah, about that. About 140 pounds, maybe a little bit less. And most animals that size you'd expect to find in a herd, because they're quite large, and therefore it's easier for them to stay away from predators by being in a group. But the reedbuck is a little bit different because it likes to live in very long grass and very wet, long areas. I'm just going to go a little bit forward, see if we can't get another view. And so that's why you find a reedbuck on its own. I think they're spectacularly good looking. Emily, you can see his head in the grass. Emily, you say, why there's so few animals in Africa? Emily, there are lots of animals in Africa. There are probably more animals in Africa than there are in the United States. In fact, almost certainly. But you must remember that if you have, say, millions of animals in this area and no space for them to move, then they'll eat everything and then they'll all die. And so the ecosystem, or this particular area, which is grasses and trees, can support a certain number of animals. And Well, sometimes you see a lot of them and sometimes you don't, but there are lots and lots here. Remember that there are more than 2 million animals that come migrating onto this area during the sort of middle of the year, if you like. And we've got a lot of giraffe over there, so I know sometimes, especially for younger viewers and younger people on safari, it feels like sometimes there aren't a lot of animals in Africa, but there are. Daniel, the best safari animals in Africa are anywhere. They are very different everywhere you go. So, you could come to East Africa here and see this giraffe. This is the Maasai giraffe. You could go to South Africa and see the southern giraffe. You could see elephants down south in South Africa. You could see elephants up here. You might see reedbuck here. You wouldn't see reedbuck down at Djuma in South Africa. Then you could go to Namibia and see all sorts of other animals, springbok, and a lot of the same animals as well in a drier area. So it really just does depend where you go. That's a beautiful Maasai giraffe. Jackie, that's a difficult question to answer. You say, when was the first giraffe discovered? You know, the first written record of a giraffe probably comes from around about, I'm going to guess, when the first settlers came to Africa. In fact, probably even before then. I'm going to suggest that it was probably first written down by maybe the Egyptians when they started developing writing. But remember, there had been people living in Africa for long before the Egyptians developed their hieroglyphics. They were the first African people to develop writing. And so, although they wouldn't have been written about before, say, 5,000 years ago or so, you will definitely find that they would have been in stories from tens of thousands of years ago. So all over Africa, around the fires at night, stories of giraffe would have been told by lots and lots of people, both up here in East Africa, down in Southern Africa, and across to West Africa, when there were a lot more giraffe. And so people would have been talking about them constantly. And so to say when were they discovered is almost impossible, because for as long as people have been in this area, they have known about giraffe. Gonzalo, I'm afraid I'm too stupid to be able to count the number of spots on a giraffe. So what I'm going to ask is Manu to zoom in on that giraffe and you can count the spots. I'm going to give you exactly 25 seconds to count the spots. Go! "20 seconds left. "15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Ooh, it's going to be confusing now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, so you've counted all the spots on that side of the giraffe, Gonzalo. Now just multiply it by 2, and you've got your answer. Gonzalo, I've absolutely no idea how many spots there are on a giraffe, and I'm sure it's different on every single giraffe. You might find, Gonzalo, that you could be in the Guinness Book of World Records for the first person ever to count the number of spots on a giraffe. We don't really call them spots, we call them patches, because they look like patches rather than spots. But I get what you mean. So, Gonzalo, I would love to know how many spots you have counted. Ah. That's very interesting. So one of you counted 50, one of you counted 100, and the other counted 150. I'm going to suggest that there's a bit of inaccuracy there. So, I think maybe you need to speak to your maths teacher and say, please help us, because we can't count giraffe spots very well. Alrighty, let's carry on and see if we can go to the dead giraffe and see if we can't find some lions or hyenas or vultures there. Gonzalo, you, being the expert giraffe counter of the universe, say 50. So if you counted 50 on one side, 50 times 2, of course, is 7 million. No, it's not. It's 100. 50 times 2 is 100. So let's say roughly 100 spots on a giraffe. I'm happy with that. Well done, Gonzalo. Excellent job. We're still a little bit away from where the action was happening earlier. We're going to drive a little bit faster now. And while we do that, I believe that Tristan, who is an excellent mathematician, is going to count the spots on a leopard.
I would love to be counting the spots on a leopard, because it would mean that we would be seeing a leopard, but we're not, and so that makes it very difficult. And I'm not sure about master mathematician, James. I think my teachers at school would disagree with you 100% and would tell you that I wasn't very good at maths at all. So kids, make sure that you do your maths homework. Don't be like me. Do your maths, and it will get you far in life. Anyway, you can see that we do have a beautiful, beautiful antelope that is sitting here that doesn't have any spots, so I don't have to worry about counting it. But this is called a waterbuck. Now, this is a big boy waterbuck. He's as big as they get. They really are amazing creatures that we get out here. They're big and they're bulky, and you'll often find the boys on their own like this. They've got those huge horns that kind of curve forward. Now, you'll notice with these guys that they don't quite look like the impalas that you saw with Sydney. Their fur is much longer than what you see on all of the other antelope out here, so we get lots of different types like impalas and kudus and nyalas and all of these kind of things. But the fur on a waterbuck is much, much, much bigger than, or longer should I say, than that of most of the other animals. Now, it's important that they have long fur like that, because long fur means that these guys can basically secrete an oil that covers their skin, and they secrete it through little glands that are in their skin called sebaceous glands. And that's oil-like substance coats the fur, and it does very well at being able to repel water, which is very important for these guys because, as their name suggests, water buck, they like to use water in order to get away from predators. So if there's something like wild dogs or lions around, they'll often run towards water to get out. And if their fur has got that oil on it, the water doesn't actually soak in and it doesn't make them cold and wet, and they actually can keep themselves nice and dry and then get out the other side. They also are called waterbuck because they spend a lot of their time in and around water. So generally where you find water, somewhere close by, waterbuck will occur in these kind of areas. They like to be close to it, like I say, so that they can get away from predators if they need to. Isaac, waterbuck is the rarest animal you can see. No, I'm joking. It's not. Waterbuck are not very rare at all. They're quite common out here. In fact, I'm sure when Jamie, she said she's going to head to Chitwa, I'm pretty sure the big dam there, we'll see some more waterbuck that side. They're quite a common antelope that we see. We actually see a few of them most drives that we go on. If you go anywhere near some sort of water source, there are these guys quite close by. But they're a beautiful animal, and funny enough, there was a long time, I was saying that they secrete this oil, and for a long time it was believed that a lot of predators don't eat them, and because of this oily secretion, it smells very bad, so you often can smell waterbuck before you see them. But it's actually not true. All predators do eat them. I've seen every single predator that hunts these guys feed off them, so I've seen cheetah, lion, leopard, and wild dogs and hyenas all feed off waterbuck quite regularly. So even though the meat for us as humans is not very tasty, for predators they still like it. So Sophie, a big bull like this, or a big male waterbuck like this, he'll probably weigh close to about 400, 450 pounds. So they get quite chunky. In fact, they can even go a little bit heavier than that, but they are quite heavy set animals. They've got the stocky kind of shoulders and legs, so they can get quite big, and they obviously have that huge set of horns which can be quite intimidating, and they will use those against smaller predators. So things like wild dogs, they'll often try and sort of thrash at them with their horns. So wild dogs stay quite clear of the males in particular, and they hunt mostly the little babies more than anything else. Now you'll notice on those horns there's got these really cool kind of ridges on them. Talking about the horns, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here, but the horns themselves have got these amazing kind of ridges all over them. Now you would think that seems a bit odd. Why would they need ridges? Well, the ridges are there to basically help with when these guys are fighting. So waterbuck males will compete for females, and what they'll do is they'll put their horns together and they'll push each other around and they'll scrape and bump and fight. And if the horn was very smooth, you would find that it would be very easy for that horn to slip on the other male's horns, and they could stab each other in the face or the neck and cause a lot of injury. So instead they've got these little ridges. Now when the other male comes along and his horns are also ridged, those ridges basically kind of get traction, and so basically they lock together and they can actually push each other around and test their strength without having to worry too much about being hurt. So it's a very clever system for a antelope to have, and these waterbuck will use that quite regularly. Often see male waterbuck fighting for females. This particular male, he won't be doing much of that because, well, there's no females around. It's just him all on his lonesome this afternoon. And I'm sorry, boy, that you've got no friends with you. Although he does have some impala friends that are milling about around him. They're all kind of sitting close by and sort of feeding as they go along, and he's just taking it very easy at the moment. Well, there you go. They're the impalas that we were talking about. So those are his kind of friends at this stage. So, Isaac, where do antelopes sleep? Well, anywhere really. It doesn't have a certain space that they'll sleep in. They can go under any of the trees during the day, so you'll find them often when it's very hot. Today it's cold and cloudy, so the animals don't have to worry too much, but generally when it's hot they'll go and find a shady spot, so under a tree, and they'll just lie down there. At night is a little bit different, because at night they know the predators are more active, and so what you'll find is that these guys will try and find an open clearing. So this is not very open at the moment, this is quite sort of thick, but generally what they'll try to find is some sort of open clearing where they can go and sit like this, and they can lie down, and then they'll be able to see around them, and they can see then if things like lion or leopard come along, and so that's basically where they sleep. Also, what you'll find with antelope is normally they're in herd structures. There's very few antelope out here that are solitary, and so you'll find some will be sleeping and some will be awake, and that's how they'll kind of protect themselves. But there's no place that they go to sleep. They don't mind sleeping anywhere as long as it's fairly safe. At night they'll try to find more open areas, and then during the day thicker areas where there's a little bit more shade and they can stay out of the hot sun. Now you might have to have heard a bit of a noise of birds calling. So there's quite a few birds that will be flying around. You don't see them too much on waterbuck, but on the impalas you will see them. There it is, up in the top of the tree. There's two of them actually, or three of them should I say. And those are called red-billed oxpeckers. Now an oxpecker is a very interesting bird because it's basically the antelope's friend. As the antelopes walk around, unfortunately out here, there's lots of ticks and parasites, and so the ticks get onto the fur of these antelope and they irritate the antelopes. Now those oxpeckers, it's their job basically to try and clean the antelopes of all of these parasites. So they'll go along and they've got this little beak that's like a pair of scissors, and it just goes and it cuts out basically, well not cuts out, but it kind of pulls out all the little ticks that are on the fur of this particular antelope that they land on, and they're able to keep the antelopes quite clean, which is pretty amazing. And so they eat a lot of parasites, and you'll find generally if it's a herbivore, so things like the antelope species or buffalo and the likes, these guys will land on them, even hippos, and try and keep them nice and clean. What they will also do, which is quite interesting, is they're a little bit like a vampire, and we had Halloween yesterday, so I hope you all got dressed up nicely, and they have a ability to basically drink blood. So they're called what's known as a seguinivore. And so if the antelope has a hole on it or a cut, you'll find these oxpeckers will land and they'll actually peck at the cut, and they'll open the cut out and force it to start bleeding again, and then they'll actually drink the blood from that animal. So they're a little bit like a vampire. Now of course luckily they don't go after people, so we don't have to worry too much about us being attacked by them, but it is quite interesting to see. So even though they do a good job for the antelope and keep them clean, they can also be a little bit dangerous and cause a bit of a damage. So John, it's obviously difficult out here to for waterbuck to get to the age that they really can get to. Most waterbuck, unfortunately, as they start to get a bit older, will be hunted and killed. But I mean, theoretically, you'd probably find a good age waterbuck out here would be anywhere between 10 and 12. That would be quite old. You might get some that will go to about 14, but it would be very rare for that to happen. Most of them would be, I suppose, about 10 years old would be a good lifespan for waterbuck in this area. There's too many predators for any of these animals, because remember, as they get older, it's much like us as people. As we get older, we get slightly slower, we get, we're not as mobile as what we are when we're young and fit and healthy. And so it means that predators can chase after them with a little bit more ease, and so they will hunt older animals. And that's why in the wild, not many animals will actually live to their full lifespan that they could probably live in a zoo where they're looked after and taken care of and fed and no predators. So you'll find, like I say, I mean, a 10 to 12-year-old waterbuck would be quite an old one for this system. Anyway, we're going to leave our waterbuck to carry on sleeping, and so while we do that and we're talking about waterbuck, let's send you across to Jamie, who's gotten to Chitwa Dam, and I wonder if there's some waterbuck on her side.
How did he know? Look, there are waterbuck. There's lots of waterbuck, and they look as though they're going to the water's edge for a drink. Now there you go. Correctly predicted. I also see the animal that we've come all the way down here to see, which is the hippopotamus. Oh, the waterbuck are a little bit nervous. I'm just gonna, you've seen the waterbuck, so I'm just gonna show you them very quickly. There they go. Very, very nervous around the water's edge. Now there's a good reason why they're nervous around the water's edge. There are lots of predators around here, and the big cats, things like lions, they haven't learned. They know that there's only so many places that the waterbuck and the other animals can go to have a drink. So they know that they can come here to look for food. Now, Izzy, you would like to know how many different predators a waterbuck has. Izzy, the main predator for waterbuck is lions, because they are the biggest of the cats out here, so they're strong enough to catch them. But wild dogs will also hunt waterbuck, and sometimes even a really big leopard might take on a young waterbuck. And then baby waterbuck, of course, because when they're small, they are much more vulnerable to predators. Then sometimes cheetah will hunt them, leopards definitely will, hyena will hunt them as well. So there are lots and lots of different predators of a waterbuck. Look how fluffy they are. Puffed up and cold in the rain. And hello to Isabella. Isabella is wondering about the waterbuck's sense of smell. Now, before I answered Isabella's question, I have to tell you that my favorite thing about waterbuck is their noses, because I think they have wonderfully heart-shaped noses. Now, none of them want to look at me, so I can't show you what I mean. Isabella, a waterbuck's sense of smell is amazing. It is much... Oh, look at all those tatty bits out of her ear. Sure, an old girl maybe. Imagine if you were able to smell that your friend had been in the room 3 hours earlier and they'd since gone away, and you were able to smell which direction they'd gone in. Now, most mammals out here have a much better sense of smell than we as human beings do. So imagine if you could play hide and seek by following the smell of somebody. It would be amazing. Now, that's the sort of thing that waterbuck can do. So even if the lions came for a drink here last night, and now it's almost 24 hours later, they would still be able to smell the scent of the lions. I can hear a beautiful bird calling off in the distance, an African fish eagle. But I'm sure you are very excited to see the hippopotamus. So as we go forward and as the waterbuck relax, I mentioned that there was a bird calling. There are lots and lots of different birds to see in Africa, and apparently James has found a wonderful one to show you in Kenya.
There are lots and lots of birds with me here. We have got, of course, the white-backed vultures, the Ruppel's griffin vultures. I think that's a white-back flying away and sitting in a very picturesque Balanites tree there. Well, no, it actually flew past because that one is occupied by friends. Looks like two fairly amorous friends, actually. So those are probably very full. It's a bit cold for them to be flying. So the temperature's probably dropped to around about 65 degrees Fahrenheit or so. But down in front of us, we have got a great big pile of vultures on the 2 dead giraffe. Well, Robert, here's your answer to your question. They eat anything that has died. And they are eating here 2 dead giraffe. Now, I was expecting to find lions and hyenas here. In fact, we have a lion coming in now. This is quite interesting. Just over there, Manu. He's just heading out of the grass there. I suspect the rest of the pride is there. He may or may not come here. But he's been eating on this carcass, I think probably for about 2 days now. So he'll be very fat and very full and not very hungry. And that's why he's allowed these vultures to come in and take their share. So there's almost nothing left of these giraffe. And remember that each one of them would have weighed in the region of 3,000 pounds. And so 6,000 pounds of meat has almost disappeared during the course of about, 48 hours. It's 2 days. You can hear them. I'm just going to shut up for a while, and you can hear them shouting at each other. You hear that? Just fighting with each other. Squabbling. Hissing. Sorry about the wind, everybody. It doesn't blow in this part of the world. Keaton. Oh, you wanted to know if they're related to crows or not. They're not very closely related to crows, no. No, the vultures are much more closely... They're actually largely related only to themselves. They don't have very close relatives in this area. Now you see the ones with the white tips to the beak? Those are Ruppel's griffon vultures. And the ones without white tips to the beaks are white-backed vultures. And then there's also a hooded vulture, noticeably smaller than the others. There's one right at the back, on the back left of your picture there. You can see a hooded vulture. And he looks like he's got a much more pinched face. And he eats much finer bits of meat, and unfortunately he has to wait for the big griffons, the Ruppel's griffon and the white-backed vulture, to go away before he can get in and eat. There is still quite a lot left to eat here, and it wouldn't surprise me if some hyenas were to come wandering through here. That is a marabou stork. Now, interestingly, that marabou stork, which is also a scavenger, is quite closely related to what we call the New World vultures. And the New World vultures would include obvious examples like the Andean condor. So the New World is the Americas, and they are quite closely related to the New World vultures of the Americas. Alrighty, we're going to leave the scene. Not too much going on here. Let's head back across to South Africa, where Jamie's got something special.
Back here in South Africa, you've seen some very big birds. Now here is the biggest bird of its family. It's called a giant kingfisher, and I'm really excited to see it because I have not seen a giant kingfisher in ages and ages. So there's lots of different members of the kingfisher family. Unfortunately, I forgot my bird book today, so I can't show you the pictures of all of them. But there's only a few of them that actually fish. And the giant kingfisher is one of them. So that's why this kingfisher is here at the waterhole, perched on top of a dead tree. And it's using its very, very sharp eyesight to spot movement and search for fish. So there you go, the giant kingfisher. Now, I said I wanted to come and look for hippopotamus and that they were a little bit easier to find. Now, what you will have noticed is behind the kingfisher, yep, there you go, we have got some hippopotamus. We've actually got lots and lots of hippopotamus in this waterhole because it is the dry season here in South Africa, so there's not that many places for the hippopotamus to go. This is the only waterhole nearby that's got enough space for more than maybe one hippopotamus. So there we go. Oh, I've seen that hippo before. The one that you can see, sort of not the one's face, but the one in front of it. That one's been in a fight, and we've actually seen it here before. It's all scratched up. So that's what you can see there sticking out of the water. It's got some injuries. There's its head over there. And that's all the rest of the hippopotamus belonging to the chitwa pod of hippo. Now, Trevor, you want to know how tall a hippopotamus is. Trevor, that is a very good idea, a very good question, because it's really hard to tell just how tall a hippopotamus is. Now, they are around about just over 1.2 meters, sometimes even 1.5 meters at the sort of the top of their shoulders. So to give you an idea of how big that is, that's about 5.2 meters. 5.2 feet, sorry. Not 5.2 meters. That would be enormous. That would be a terrifying hippopotamus. So let me show you. If I lean out of the car, so I'm sitting, I don't want to get out of the car because I might give the hippos a bit of a fright, but I'm sitting in the car. The car's a little bit higher than your normal car, but if a hippo were to walk quite close to me, its shoulder would be somewhere around about here. So they're really, really big animals. But they look strange because they've got these funny short legs. And a lot of people, when they look at a hippo out of water, they actually think that it must be super slow because it's that high, but it weighs up to 2 tons. That's over 4,000 pounds. Now people think that a hippopotamus must be slow, but that's actually not true. A hippo can run exceptionally quickly. Not as fast as a zebra or an antelope or a lion, but still faster than almost all human beings. Oh, look! Remember how Tristan showed you an oxpecker? Look at that. And hello to Amelia, who is wondering how hippopotamus hunt for food. And I imagine if that is what Amelia is thinking about, you might even be worried that these birds could be caught by the hippopotamus. Well, here's the thing about hippopotamus, and this is why the oxpeckers like sitting on top of its head. A hippopotamus is a vegetarian. It is a herbivore. So a hippopotamus is a big, strong, and potentially scary animal, but they actually only... Could you hear them making their hippopotamus noise? So a hippopotamus goes out at night to go and graze. So they eat grass. Now sometimes, maybe if something has died near the water or perhaps in the water, maybe it was killed by a crocodile, they might nibble a little bit around the edges, but they don't eat meat. It is not really part of their diet. So hippos don't hunt their food. See how they're talking to each other? Isn't that cool? So that is all the hippos from one side of this big waterhole right across to the other side, and they're all talking to each other. I don't know what they're saying. Perhaps they're playing Marco Polo. I don't think they're actually playing Marco Polo. I think they are just making sure every hippo knows which space is where, which hippo belongs where, but that's the way in which they do it. Now I have to show you something else quickly before we continue on the hippo. I'm scared it's going to fly away. I showed you the giant kingfisher, Seb, on that rock, on the bank of the, on the sort of where, there we go, right in the middle of your frame.
This right there.
There you go. So I showed you the giant kingfisher, Now you get to meet its smaller cousin, the pied kingfisher. Now, pied is a word that we use when we describe things that are black and white. That is a pied kingfisher. So we've seen all sorts of different things. So maybe, hopefully, even though animals in Africa can be thought of as being under threat, perhaps you've all learned a little bit about just how many amazing things we have here in Africa. Now, unfortunately, it's time for us to say goodbye to the students because it is a time for you to continue with the normal school day. So I hope that you had fun on safari with us. I hope we get to see you again soon. Enjoy your day, and we will carry on with the rest of our safari. For all you regular viewers, because we can't think of another way of referring to you, I'm sure you're all very excited to know what's playing out with the saga of the two dead giraffe. Let's go and find out.
Hello everybody on the regular safari. We used to say the adult safari, but of course that has connotations unbecoming of a family show. Okay, so here I am in the Marsi Mara, as David Gathamba-Githu would say, and we're sitting with these two dead giraffes, of which there is very little left, and a number of vultures. Please remember to ask us questions, #SafariLive on Twitter or the YouTube chat stream. You can do that. I will greet you again fondly from the Masai Mara so you can see that I'm here. Very good. Manu, of course, on camera. What a pleasure to be back with him. The lions are around. Two Kichwa male lions, apparently. We have seen them. One of them's just poking his fat bonce out of the grass over there. There you can just make him out. His cohort about, probably about 400 meters the other way. We can't see him from here. And the pride, I'm assuming, is somewhere around here. Apparently, as Manu says, there were a lot of hyenas here yesterday. And of course, Steph had a fantastic sighting with Manu here yesterday. And there was an injured vulture, a vulture that captivated everyone's hearts because it was attacked by the lions, managed to play dead, and then it got up and then was whacked down again, and you're all wondering if it survived, and I'm afraid there is absolutely no possible way that I can tell from the melee going on in front of me whether or not the silliest vulture in the world is in fact still here. I can tell you that if you look to the right hand side, on that low termite mound, just down a bit, Manu, those two there, go down, more right, sorry, far, and down, close and right here, there, that one that's just jumped off, there, on that termite mound, there, this chap has been asleep. Could this possibly have been the injured one? Does that look like the one that was set upon by the lions? I wondered if maybe that was it, or if it was perhaps just having a snooze. Apparently it had a darker head, says Kirsten. Are you sure it wasn't just covered in viscera? So I'm afraid I don't see an injured vulture. Well, I think that's probably a good thing. But we do not know whether that was, is, isn't, wasn't the vulture that was set upon by the lions. Nico, I think you'll find that vultures would absolutely engage in cannibalism. In other words, they would eat each other. Look at these two having a fight. The white-backed vulture is much smaller than the marabou stork, but not afraid to have a full go. So yes, they'll eat pretty much anything that's dead, Niku. Listen to them shouting at each other. I must say, it's very, very magical to be back here. Just very gorgeous indeed. A lot of them flying off. I imagine there'll be 1 or 2 hyenas coming in sometime during the night, and I suspect some lions too. Ooh, this is interesting. Look at this. Vultures coming, not vultures, those are called giraffe, coming to have a look perhaps at their fallen comrades. They are very curious, so we know that if they see a gathering of vultures like this, they may well come by. And apparently Steph also, not to be outdone by me in any way, was also here last night with some other giraffe coming to have a look. Not just 2, but apparently a whole herd. Well, lucky old him. Oh, sorry, what was that question about breeding seasons and vultures? Do they have a breeding season? Well, the answer is yes, they do have a breeding season. In South Africa, a ref, yeah, I just couldn't get the name. A ref, they lay eggs once a year, they'll breed once a year normally. And in South Africa, they breed during the winter, which is quite interesting. They'll give birth very kind of late in the winter. And that's probably because, oh, there's a hippopotamus just cruising through the grassland. That's very cool. There's always something to see here. It really is absolutely amazing. Isn't that astounding? I'm not sure if they're quite as seasonal here, but I suspect because there aren't really any seasons here. They have rainy seasons and dryish seasons. But I can try and look it up for you. I suspect you'll find them much less seasonal in this part of the world. Unfortunately, the app for East African birds is not quite the same as its Southern African counterpart. Paula, it's very interesting to say. I think that the whole question of mourning in animals, in our own species as well, is very interesting. Do I think they mourn their dead? Well, in a way, yes, I do. I have seen giraffe mothers hanging around their dead calves for ages and then bellowing at any predators that came near them and trying desperately to protect the carcass despite the fact that it was completely lifeless. It's difficult to look at that and interpret it in any other way than saying, well, surely that mother is feeling a sense of confusion, maybe, doesn't understand why the baby's not standing up. But you need to ask yourself the question, well, what's the function of the behavior? Why would an animal feel bereft or sad? Well, we know that, of course, that a human being that doesn't feel bereft or sad, or is unable to feel bereft or sad, is known as a psychopath. And a psychopath is somebody who cannot feel any empathy, cannot feel any kind of sense of sympathy for something that has died or something that it has killed or that he or she has killed. And so that extreme example, if everyone was a psychopath, we wouldn't care about each other and we wouldn't survive as a species. Our children would all die very quickly, and we wouldn't be able to look after sick ones, family members, and the society couldn't hold on or couldn't survive. Now, I think that if you look at it from that point of view and say, well, then mourning, or not so much mourning, but a sense of loss, has a purpose, has an evolutionary purpose, in that by feeling that sense of loss, the animal will try to avoid that sense of loss by looking after its offspring. And so from that point of view, yes, I would say that there are a lot of animals here that would feel bereft at the loss of a youngster especially. Whether they feel bereft at the loss of a sibling, probably less so. I mean, it's difficult to see the wildebeest of the migration crying their eyes out as they lose any number crossing the rivers or to the lions at night. So, I don't know. Alrighty, we're going to move from here, see what else we can see. In the meantime, Tristan has a small bee eater.
Indeed, we've got a very little bee eater, hence the name Little Bee Eater, and it is posing perfectly for us on one of the banks of the Mulwati. It's right next to us, and we don't often get really good views of these guys because they're generally quite flighty and they don't actually sit too close to you, but for some reason this guy's super chilled, and so we're getting the most beautiful views of it, and you can see how pretty that coloration is. It's all fluffed up. Exactly, lots of birds are posing for us, Kirsten. Isn't that pretty though? You can see it's got a little blue eye band there that they often goes unnoticed with these guys. Oh, big yawn as well. So you've got that little blue eye band, the green sort of cap, and that yellow throat with those olives on the wings. They're very cool bee eaters. Now, generally in pairs, I often find them together. I can't see another one here at the moment, but this one is sitting on this branch and basically just hawking insects is what it's doing. So it goes, you see it flies and grabs something, and then it will go and land on a branch. Now it seems to have flown away for now and probably landed somewhere behind me. Can't see it, but anyway, we at least got a nice view of it, which is very, very cool. So that was quite nice. It's always a treat to drive the Mulwati because you often get really cool sightings of the various kingfishers in here. So things like grey-hooded, and you'll get, grey-headed, brown-hooded, striped sometimes inside here, and then you'll even get pygmy and malachites in the summer in the Mulwati. So it's always nice for those kind of birds that hang around quite low down. Often get really cool sightings of them. We also had a nice sighting of the Wahlberg's eagle, but unfortunately we have our roofs on because of the weather, and that meant that we actually couldn't put it on camera. We tried to reposition and kind of move around, but we couldn't get it right. Right, now I'm going to go and check a couple of other spots to see if I can find any sign of Tingana, and so while I do that, let's send you across to Sydney, who's got a very tall, spotty creature that is alive, not like James's.
This animal is very much tall. It cannot even fit by the camera. You can see that. If you look at this animal just behind the ears, it's too bright. All the ears are very bright at the back, and that is for the communication purposes. Giraffes has got a very good wide vision because they are very tall. They can be able to see far. These animals, how they feed is amazing. They don't just stand. They do consider the wind direction to make sure that the wind is blowing away the scent from the tree and the leaves where it's feeding from. Because these trees, when the animals are feeding, they do try to protect themselves by secreting quite a lot of chemicals. So these giraffes don't want to inhale the chemical. The tongue of this giraffe is very dark. It's like bluish color. And that tongue, it helps in order to protect them against the thorns, because the thorns cannot easily attack the tongue because of the very kind of a slimy saliva, and the color of this tongue is dark in order to help the giraffe against sunlight. Queen Olivia, I am not too sure, but I can suggest that the eyelashes must be long in order to help them when they are trying to get the leaves there by these long trees. So if you look at this giraffe at the back, there's a line of hairs, beautiful line of hairs going down. That line of hairs is a line which can tell you as to whether this giraffe is in a good condition or not. When that line is down, when the mane is down, it means there's a problem. When the mane is up, it means the giraffe is in a good condition. When this mane is down, it means the giraffe is lacking of calcium. And when it's up, it means calcium availability is there. So when it's down, mostly is when they will go and chew the bones of the other old dead animals in order to gain more calcium. Giraffes, the skin diseases, I haven't seen them occurring to the giraffes, but as part of the animals, yes, chances are there that these animals can get the skin diseases. Not only the cats and dogs got diseases, some of the big animals as well do carry some of the diseases. Some of the giraffes don't have hairs alongside their bodies because when they are fighting, the top of their oxycones, they do hit the side of the bodies and take off this, the hairs from the skin. You will see some of them here at the back, just close to the hip bone, they don't have hairs there because that is where every time they are fighting and hitting from their oxycones. So oxycones are these kind of protruding bones which are covered by the skin, which is more like the horns. So I'm just going to carry on now and see if we can find this giraffe again. So here where this giraffe is, I can see that the trees already they are starting to get quite a lot of leaves. So this giraffe is feeding on one of the trees which is just getting the leaves now, and that is the first one I'm seeing with quite a lot of leaves. Others are still very dry of the same species. It is the russet bush willow. He's very fast. Look at that. So giraffes, they are not that very water dependent because they get quite a lot of moisture from what they're eating there. And when going to the water holes, they tend to become an easy prey because they've got to bend their legs and go down. When they're doing that, lions can easily get them. Lions do take big animals such as the giraffes. So this one has got very dark spots. It's telling you it's a male. So the male has got dark spots, females light spots. But look at that, there's an open patch there. So that open patch, you might find that it resulted from strangling the necks when they are fighting with the other ones. I'm not too sure what has happened there, but I know that these animals, they do lose hairs a lot from fighting activities. A scenic, I haven't seen the oxycone broken from these animals because they are very high up, and when they are fighting, these oxycones only hit the soft side of the bodies and the ribs. So they don't easily get locked by the branches when they are feeding. It's a very strong bone. I have seen it from a dead giraffe. The oxycones are very much strong. So now I am going to carry on and see if we can find some cats for this afternoon. So now let's go to Jamie.
Well, we have departed from Chitwa Dam, where it's all go, go, go. Imagine sitting having your lunch listening to that conversations that the hippos have. It's such an amazing sound. And that was a proper conversation they had for the kids. So we're cruising around Chitwa because I actually haven't been on Chitwa properly since I got back to the Lowveld. Which is naughty. It's not that I've been avoiding it, I've just had so many other things to see and do. I'm cruising around, just doing a little loop, and then I'm going to go back towards the Djuma clan den as it gets a bit later. You would think that this nice cool weather would mean that the hyenas would be there. I didn't see any sign of them earlier this afternoon. I don't think they're there yet. Wherever they are, I suspect, actually, that they could well be around where those vultures were. Where am I? There's the airstrip. Let's go this way. No, this is the main driveway. Let's go have a quick look on the airstrip. Maybe just, you never know. There might be a cheetah there. Perhaps no one's checked. We'll go have a look. Why not? Last time I went on the airstrip, I flapped my arms. Tila, you would like to know why there are no... Oh, Seb, do you think we can do this? Tila, hold your thought. Hold the thought. I will get back to you in one moment. I promise. They were just these... Oh. These hornbills are displaying beautifully. Doing their little courtship dance. How lovely. And there is a drone. There is a drone, yes. There is a drone. Flying overhead. There it is, over there. There is a drone. It is not our drone. It is not our drone. I believe it to be another drone. It's a ghost drone. There is a drone and a really beautiful dog.
Dog?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's Beretta.
Beretta?
That's his name, yeah.
Oh gosh, he's beautiful. I don't know if we could put Beretta on camera.
I don't know.
I don't think so. This is the landowners. I have made a grievous error in coming in this direction. I think I might need to go in another direction. For we have just gone past. Well, you've got a hornbill. There you go. You can keep looking at the yellow-billed hornbill. And I'm going to try not to dig myself into any kind of hole. Cool. So I'm going to go and say hello because I have now stumbled upon them on an afternoon jaunt. So while I do that, let's go across to Tristan so he can reveal the answer to a Tracking Tuesday.
Indeed, Jamie. Well, say hello from all of us. It sounds like it's all happening on Jamie's side of the world. Now, we are going to do Tracking Tuesday. I just need you to give me 2 seconds so that I can get towards the Treehouse Dam and see if there's anything there, and then we can just stop and kind of go through everything. But Tracking Tuesday this week was somewhat comical for me because there were lots of very interesting guesses, and I'll get into all of it now, and I'll show you why they weren't certain things and exactly what it was. But there's some pretty funny ones that were guessed this week, and so we'll get into it fairly shortly. We're almost at Treehouse Dam. Treehouse Dam's just off to our left at the moment. Not that there's any water here, and what we're looking for is probably not going to be here, but it just seems like a good place to stop and actually do it in case something is around. You never know, maybe Hosanna or the likes could be around this area. Oh, there's a nice orange-breasted bushshrike just on our right-hand side that we don't often get to see nice and out in the open. There it is, just on the top of your frame there, Craig. The beautiful kind of burnt orange chest. There we go. See that? And it's got a little kill by the looks of things that it just swallowed. But very, very pretty little bird that we see around here. They're the ones that you kind of find normally in thickets in drainage lines. So see them out in the open like that is quite nice. Anyway, flown off. Right, so let's get to the dam. The dam's right here, and we'll park on the dam wall, and we'll get into Tracking Tuesday. Now, we were supposed to have revealed the answer yesterday. I do apologize that we kind of missed it for some reason. Yesterday afternoon we were following cats around, and it became a bit tricky to actually do it. But I'll go through it now. Exactly, we were in Halloween's party mood. We weren't in Tracking Tuesday mood, so that's what made it a bit difficult. It's all Taylor's fault, exactly. Taylor had to come back and ruin our Tracking Tuesday's reveal. Alright, Craig, you don't have to go anywhere because you can stay on me because I need my book quickly. Right, here we go. There is the book. Okay, so some of you, first of all, we'll get to those. Now I just need to get to the other one that I'm looking for. Okay, it was that one, and eventually we ended up with the right one, which I will get shortly now as well. Where are they now? They should have been here. Sorry guys, I'll get them shortly. No, it must be here. It's got to be in this area. This is where everything else is. Okay, good. We've got everything. Right. Now, I was saying that there were some entertaining guesses on all of this, and probably the most entertaining guess of this whole thing was Brent's feet. But alas, it was not Brent's feet. I would love to show you why it's not Brent's feet, but I can't find the picture. So I was going to show you that Brent's feet would have left a very telltale sign, which I can't find at the moment. So I'm going to just get to the track itself and show you on the track why it was not Brent's feet. But essentially, there we go. So this is what we're looking at. That's the track for Track It Tuesday. So you can see there's my Leatherman over there, and then there's this kind of big shape there, and then another shape towards the back end of that track. Now, some of you would have said Brent's feet, and while I applaud your efforts in saying Brent's feet, unfortunately Brent has very long toes, and so you would have found the toes on the front here. There's also not enough kind of sort of crackled heels area like you would see on an elephant track for... Exactly, you would have seen the toenail marks, Kirsty, like a hyena track, and also you don't have the sort of wrinkled skin on the bottom like you have from an elephant from walking around out here for so long and kind of getting all calloused. Right, so that's what the track looked like. Many of you went for hippo and rhinos. So as you can see here, most definitely not. These have got very large toes on the hippo track itself. You can see 4 independent toes and a big pad, and these things are large and not elongated anyway. They're quite rounded tracks. The rhinos also, it's just wrong shape altogether. So there's no kind of 3 toes that you saw there. It's cannot be that at all. The other big guess that a lot of you went for, which had very close to Brent, this is also very close to Brent, is a lot of you went for this. So this is a baboon track. Definitely not a baboon track. Those tracks that were on Tracking Tuesday, now if the book will just stay open, I can get the actual picture and put it next to it so you guys can all see what I'm talking about, is that if you look at this track, you'll see that it does not have the big V at the back there. It's rounded at the back on that area there. Also, no thumb coming off. If this was a baboon track, the thumb would have gone towards the Leatherman, and on the front here is all quite rounded. So definitely not a baboon track. Baboon tracks are quite easy in that regard. You get a very nice, clear sort of shaping of these toes. You get that opposable thumb and this big, deep V that you get there. Now, that's obviously the back foot. The front foot would have not looked at all like that. There would have been this kind of front foot section, again with the thumb coming out, and then these very obvious pads. Now, the fingers on the baboon are slightly shorter than that of a vervet monkey, and also obviously much larger in terms of the actual size of the track. So definitely not a baboon either. No opposable thumb. So it leaves us with really one thing, and I believe I think very few of you got it right, or only one. Was it Michelle was the right name? Was it, Chris? Natasha, sir. Natasha and Michelle, you are the only 2 that got our Tracking Tuesday correct, which well done to you guys. I will get to what it is in 2 seconds if I can just find it here. I've lost it now. Sorry, guys. It's a bit tricky because nothing's in the same place. Where have you gone? I had it 2 minutes ago. Sorry, everybody. Bear with me. No, we've gone too far. Oh, there it is there. I was right there and I just went past it. So there we go. That is what it is. It is a buffalo track that was there. Well done to those that got it right. Now, you might say to me, Tristan, that does not look anything like what I've just seen on your picture. And that is very true. It's because this is as good a track as you can possibly get. So obviously 2 hooves from a buffalo, but very, very rounded on the front foot, and the hind foot you can see is a little bit more elongated. You'll also notice in soft sand sometimes you get these 2 little dew claws that come down. That's particularly in kind of riverbed sand. You'll see those, but on harder ground that doesn't show up. Now, you will say, like I said, that I'm absolutely mad. So basically what you've got with this particular picture is on the back area here, that is the back hoof over there, all right? And then this is the front hoof with that edging that we've got. So this edge that runs there is the front hoof cutting over the top of the back hoof. Well, sorry, actually, kind of just standing on the back hoof, and it's because it's a buffalo that's followed another one. So there's a back hoof front hoof, and the actual front hoof has gone over the top slightly on it. Now, the interesting thing about this, and the reason why I actually took this photo, is not because it was a buffalo. It's a very nondescript buffalo. The sand had been blown by the wind a little bit, so it wasn't fresh. But this particular buffalo, if you look at the size of my Leatherman, is possibly one of the largest buffalo tracks that I've ever seen. This is one that Herbie and I saw together, and Herbie was shocked when he saw this, and he thought this is probably one of the biggest he's ever seen too. So this front kind of section here, we actually didn't get the whole track in, but I wanted the back and front to kind of, because it combined together, and it made it quite a tricky track for you guys. But it was an absolutely monstrous track that we saw there. So very, very, very large. But indeed, it was a buffalo. You can actually just see the slight sort of ridge of sand in the middle that you do get in that very round track that a buffalo leaves. So well done to those that actually got it. Very, very good. So, Lynn, you say the size is what confused you. Well, yes, they can be quite tricky. Just remember with these tracks, and it's something that I always say about Tracking Tuesdays, that when we do these tracks, remember that we will always put the Leatherman there. Now, a Leatherman is a stock standard size. I can't tell you exactly how big it is. Sorry, guys, it's just moving now at the moment. I can't tell you how big it is offhand, but essentially, if you Google what the size of that is, you'll be able to work out exactly how big these tracks are that we're talking. Now, when you see tracks in the sand, and when we go further with the Tracking Tuesday, always try and look for breaks within the kind of thing. So this was very definitely another hoof that had stood here as opposed to the one at the back. So everyone thought this was one giant track, but in fact it was actually a hind leg and a front leg that was around. So that's why it was quite tricky. Now, hopefully you learned a little bit of that, and hopefully you all are starting to get a little bit better at this. Remember, we do it every Tuesday on SafariLive Official on Instagram, and that will be a place where you can catch up and you can have a bit of fun with us. I think it's quite fun to be able to do this, and it's really been nice to see how many people have actually been participating. So thank you to all that do, and if you haven't been, you need to jump onto the fun and see what you can kind of get. And yes, Kirsty, we need to go to Tricky Tracking Tuesday, although we've put out some and you guys have absolutely hammered us on them and kind of all gotten it right. So the scrub hair one was, I suppose, quite an easy one, but you know, there's been some where you guys have done very, very well, and so we need to sometimes keep you on your toes and give you some tricky ones. I know there's some even harder ones coming that we've got, and as summer starts to come through, then I'm going to start getting a whole bunch from Steph, and then we're all going to be in trouble. Anyway, while we go and look around, nothing at Treehouse Dam to report, and let's send you across to James, who I'm sure is absolutely loving being back in the Mara, especially because, well, he's sitting with two massive dead giraffe.
Right here, we have found some more Leons. There they are. Now, our best guess, I say our best guess, taking credit from Manu, is that those are the Marsh Pride. That is the Marsh Pride. Pride, of course, is a singular noun. I said to Manu, how do you know it is not the Pride? And he said to me, there are not enough of them, which of course is absolutely correct. Those are all youngsters, though, it looks like to me. Youngsters of the Marsh Pride, which is quite exciting. They are, of course, possibly one of the most famous prides in the world, next to the great Unguhumas, obviously. And you may find that the framing is, well, slightly different. Can you see any difference in the framing? Because we have a world premiere on the back of the car today, a world premiere from a man whose name I'm now going to butcher. Bangai? He's nodding. Bangai is on camera, and he's just joined us here in the Masai Mara. There we go. See, he can operate the zoom. That's excellent news. And here I am, hopefully in focus. Am I? Yes, I am. What stuff. That's exactly what he's doing. So, that is the Marsh Pride. I'm pretty sure they're the ones that have been eating on the giraffe. That is what I'm told. And so I think we'll probably sit with them for a little bit longer. Maybe, in fact, we probably won't, actually. They looked like they were going to maybe hunt some topi, but I don't think they're going to do that now. We're going to do a little bit of a loop around and then go back to those giraffe as night falls and see what happens there. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind welcomes to Bangai. He is looking very smiley indeed at the fact that all of you have welcomed him. Hang on a sec, sorry. Those lions have got up. They may be about to sit down again. Let's just have one last look there if we can. Where on earth are they? There we go, well done. They did get up, but now they've stopped getting up. Just watch them briefly. Lions at this distance, of course, extremely difficult to identify or pick out individual personalities or defining marks. Well, they are starting to show that sort of early evening playfulness, the youngsters, which is the precursor to normally another 20-minute snooze or so, and then some form of hunting or moving activities. They may well go back towards those giraffe. We're not far from them here. Now, of course, I haven't been in this area for a little while. I don't know where or how they've returned back to this area, the Marsh Pride. They were, of course, decimated by poisonings and takeovers and disease and all sorts of other things, but they seem to be making a comeback. Kim, what was that? What would I do if a lion approached? Is that correct? What would the best thing be to do if a lion approached? Sorry, there's an 8-second delay, so I've got to wait for it to come back. Oh, if it had tried to attack me, the best thing to do, Kim, would be to scream very loudly and run away, waving my hands in the air. That is not true. That would be a very poor thing to do. You would almost certainly be eaten alive. The best thing to do if you're on foot is to stand dead still, and you can make a loud noise. You can clap and shout and say, "Go on, duck, go away," and then hopefully they'll back off and stop, because normally they won't push through on an attack unless it's a very unusual situation. In a vehicle, it's highly, highly unlikely that they would attack you, but if you couldn't just drive away, and you wouldn't drive away quickly because they can run at about 80 kilometers an hour, which is 50 miles an hour, and for you to get up to that sort of speed in a car like this would take about 3 days. And so what you'd probably do is start the engine and bang on the door and make a big noise, and hopefully they'd stop. But to have a lion jump into a vehicle like this, you know, if it had ever happened, you'd rest assured that it would be the very last time that anybody would ever go out in an open vehicle in a place like this. So, yeah, touch wood. Hasn't ever happened, and hopefully it won't. Good. Shall we move on? Let's move on. I found the discussion of Brent's Brent's footprint most amusing. You would have seen claw marks. That's quite good. Yes. And they always also found some cheese bacteria, that sort of thing. Very pretty pinkening of the horizon over the Ololololololo escarpment. Just wonderful to be back in this, well, we use the word too much, but I'm going to use it again, really iconic African wilderness area. So special. Here we have something that looks like a Palomino pony that died. It is not a Palomino pony that died. It is in fact a wildebeest. And that is the white beard of the wildebeest that was obviously distasteful to whatever ate it. Didn't make it through the migration, got all the way here from the Serengeti, and unfortunately its remains now fertilize the very fertile marsh area of the Mara Triangle. Sorry, I missed that question, Kirsten. I was overcome by the sight of what looked like a small Palomino pony that had been taken out, but it wasn't. Oh, MGN, yes, guides sometimes are barefoot when they go on drive. I personally am not barefoot when I go on drive. I think that my footwear is an indicator of the, well, the sort of formality that comes with the job of being a presenter. You can see I'm being extremely formal as we speak, displaying my plover's leg to you, topped with a shoe. Some people definitely do go on drive barefooted. Some people go in thongs or slops. A thong in some parts of the world can mean a G-string. I don't think any of them go on drive with G-strings. They might, but I'm not aware of any. But certainly they go on drive with slip-slops, slops, or that sort of thing. Sometimes sandals. And certainly we had a presenter called Mark Weiner, who used to be known as the Barefoot Professor, and he used to go on drive in his bare feet. So, yes. I personally do not go on drive in bare feet, mainly because my toes get cold. And I don't believe that Tristan Dix has ever been on drive with bare feet.
No, most definitely not. I'm not like Brent Leo Smith that goes on drive with bare feet at times, although Brent's mostly in kind of sandals more than anything else. But there's another beautiful bird for the day. Even though we've had miserable weather, we've had all the brightly coloured birds out and about, and there's an African hoopoe that is busy digging about for insects and, well, now flying away, unfortunately. Which, are you going to land for us? No, it's going to carry on flying, unfortunately. But Brent does go driving around barefoot. You can see that I'm not barefoot today. There we go. I am kind of in my trusty fellies, my Kenyan ones actually. They're getting a bit damaged though. Craig, what are you doing to my socks as well? Yes, my Pooji socks, everyone probably knows them, but look, my shoes are breaking now, so it's almost time to go back to the Mara to get a new pair, I think. But yes, they're starting to get a little hole and all the sand goes in there, so I generally empty about 5 kilograms of sand every time I get back from a drive. But I like these ones, they're very comfortable and they work quite well. So they keep my feet from getting thorny and all the other kind of things that happen. I don't know how Brent doesn't get thorns and things in his feet the way he walks around half the time. And funny enough, talking about barefoot guides, when we were in Congo, the guys there go barefoot. So they walk through the forest and these saline buys and all this kind of nonsense barefoot completely, which was absolutely surprising to me. I don't know how they do it, because it seemed like a very bad idea. There's, you never know what can be lying around. There could be all kinds of bad things like snakes and thorns and pieces of sharp wood and anything really that could cause a lot of damage. So, I thought they were quite brave. I wasn't that brave. I did one walk barefoot through the forest, and we ended up going through this stream, which was beautiful. I mean, you can imagine this rainforest, and then you just kind of go down, and there's this tiny little stream that's thick on both sides, and you walk, and the water is crystal clear. You can see all the fish kind of swimming through, quite tanninous as well. So it's got a very sort of caramel kind of color to the water, which is pretty. But anyway, so walking along, and it turned out that this stream was the stream that was inspired by Satan himself. And initially we kind of get into the stream and we're all excited, and this is so cool, we're going to walk up the stream, walk, and it's all these tiny little pebbles, but small ones like this, but not sharp that they cut your feet, but sharp enough that it's highly irritating. And so the first 10 minutes of walking through the stream was all adventure and all happiness. Then the next 10-minute phase came where it was starting to get a bit tender on the soles of the feet. Then the next 10 minutes came and it felt as though you were being beaten by somebody just hitting the bottom of your feet. And then another hour, or half an hour actually, later we were only getting out of the stream, and my feet felt as though they had been taken by somebody and a hammer had been hit on the bottom of them about 400 times. And it was quite funny actually just listening to everybody kind of squealing and yelping as we were walking along. And the guide that was with us obviously had done it many times before, and so he wasn't at all worried about it and just kind of strolled through the river. But the rest of us were not in fine fettle at all. I know my poor little tootsies were no longer tootsies. They felt as though they had been beaten and maimed and mangled, and actually for about 2 days after that they felt as though they were quite tender. No, well, Brent would have been fine because his feet are a series of calluses on the bottom that would have made sure that they didn't actually get hurt. His feet would have been absolutely fine. But for us that wear shoes regularly and are not of the bush kid ilk, like Brentlier Smith, you know, we had a bit of a tougher time of it, unfortunately. But it was still fun, I must be honest. So the reason why we went in there was two reasons. We were looking for Red River hogs down in that stream, and we were also looking for a tiger heron, which is not very common there, but we were looking for it, and the guys had seen it there a few weeks before in this exact stream, and so that's why we went inside there to try and see if we could find it. We found tracks for the Red River hogs and heard them, but we didn't actually find the heron itself or any signs of it, unfortunately. But it was still very cool watching all the little fish kind of swim around, and eventually ended up in this big pool where there was chairs and a table that had been put out, and there was a couple of quinine inspired apple juices that were there, and you put your feet in and the little fish feed off your feet after you've kind of walked through it. It's very weird. And then you have your quinine inspired oh, hello kudus. Anyway, we'll kind of carry on. We're going to James apparently has got a lot of interesting things happening. We've got some kudus that are just watching us at the moment, and so while we see where they go and we'll stay with them, let's send you back across to James, who's got the pride, I think, walking towards the carcass.
I nearly said the elephants. Those aren't elephants, though, are they? I think they're lions. They're up. We went for a little drive and then came back this way on our way back to the giraffes. And the lions are definitely up. That's an adult. So I said there were a couple of sub-adults around. That is not one of them. So there's a car going past now. Oh, there it was, and it's gone. Phew. It's lucky. It's in a bit of a rush because it's in the park late. Now, let's see if they're going hunting. They don't look very full to me. So it would not surprise me if they did try and hunt something. Surely they've been eating this giraffe. It was them, wasn't it, Manu? It was them, yeah. They might go back to the carcass. They might just go for a walk and then go to sleep. Quite often, in fact, following lions in this particular area, what we've done is got up with them, started moving with them in the night, and we'll think, oh, we're really on to a hunt now. And then just as it gets dark, they'll go to sleep again for another 3 hours, especially if they happen to be full, and especially if there isn't something very obvious for them to hunt. So let's go back and have another look there. Looking around, there is a herd of topi, like I say, quite a long way behind us, but there's for there to be any serious and yawning and sleeping and stretching and general leonine laziness. Oh yes, and rolling. I tell you, if I lived in grass like this, I lived in grass like this, I would definitely do a lot of rolling around. I believe there's been a bit of breakup. I'm sorry about that. That means the picture is not quite what it should be. I'm not sure why that should be the case, but it is the case, and I apologize. Isn't this wonderful? Watching lions play as the night starts to fall here in the Masai Mara. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Most exciting. So many lions. How many can we see there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks to me like only 2 adults. Would that be correct for the marsh pride? I don't think our records of the marsh pride are good enough for us to know for sure. Is that another one? Or those? Yes. No? Birds? Lion. It's a lion. So that would be 9. Just see the black flickering there of the ears. I think that's probably about it. Well, they're moving. They're moving with relative intent. No, they wouldn't hunt leopards, but they'd certainly kill them if they could. If they smelt a leopard or smelt a leopard's kill and the leopard didn't get out the way, they would certainly kill the leopard. They might then eat it, but it would be unlikely. There are records of lions eating leopards, but there are equally records of lions killing leopards and then just leaving them. So So I don't know what these cats are going to do, and I'm going to stop trying to predict what they're going to do because I'm going to end up with an egg upon my face. Let's just keep watching him. We are soon going to have to go into infrared because it's getting quite dark. So Rosalind, was that how tough is a lion's paw pad? I think you'd probably find that if you went to your an average garden variety St. Bernard that lived outside and exercised outside a lot, it would feel very similar. Not Chihuahua who lives in the house. I think they would have very soft, dainty, rather pathetic pads on their feet. But if you were to go to an outdoor working dog and feel its pads, I think that'd feel very similar. So sort of quite scaly, thick, calloused, and able to deal with the rigors of living in the wild here. Okay, I'm going to sit here for a little while longer with these lions. Let's go back to Sid's and find out what he's looking for.
I am now heading towards the Galago pen, where I am hoping to get some tracks for the cats. I am looking for the spotted cats this afternoon. So the weather is suitable for the hunting when it comes to these kinds of animals. It's just that since this morning the spotted cats are hiding. Maybe they've already got something. David, Hosanna is the one I'm looking for the most. I don't know where exactly Hosanna is hiding at the moment, but he must be around here. So I'm going to check by the nearest water hole areas to see if these animals are not going there for drinking purposes. So both Hosanna and Tingana, Tandi and Kalamba, they are hiding a lot these days. So earlier on I have seen quite a lot of vultures around the Galagopen area. I went to do the investigation. I found nothing, but according to the other guys in the area, the lions, 3 from the Unkuhuma Pride, the one who got separated is the one who caught something small in the morning and moved on. Niconico, it is extremely cold at the moment here where I am. The wind is so very cold. So maybe we are going to have some rain tonight. No hyenas as well here. Hyenas are very good indicators of the spotted cats. So now let's go to
Hello, it's me. It is me that Sydney was sending you across to. I have had absolutely no success. I have not seen one thing, I think, since you last saw me, which was when I was awkwardly trying to figure out what to do where we were before. So I've driven around Chitwa, I've seen nothing. I've come back onto Juma, I've still seen nothing. And at this point, I think Seb and myself are going to go home and have some hot chocolate. That's what our plan is. Now, I never finished answering the question on why there are... Thanks, Kirst. Kirst says we can go home, because clearly we're useless. We never finished the question about why there are no tigers in Africa. Quite simply because there is, different species evolved in different places, and there they have stayed. Because that's the niche that they've occupied, and they've got no reason to go to different places like that. Now, I actually think a tiger could potentially survive here, but it is, areas where you find tigers it's really, really far away. And there's a lot of competition here. And in fact, I say that they would survive here, but I think they would really struggle up against lions because of the sheer number of lions. Guys, don't panic, but I found an animal. No, I haven't. She's going behind a bush. No, there's another one. There's another one. Alright, hot chocolate is cancelled, everyone. We have found our animal for the afternoon. One herd of impala behind several dead trees. Or several, not so much dead trees as sleeping trees. Let's put it that way. I always like to think of deciduous trees as trees that go to sleep for a while. They hibernate in their own way. You can see it's cold, just looking at the color of the impala's fur. It is fluffed up and red to trap air, just in the same way that we get goosebumps. Not that I can remember what the official name for goosebumps is called. I can only think of the word goosebumps, but there's a proper. Thanks, Kirst. She's giving me goose flesh. Thank you. Yes. No, there's a proper biological term for goosebumps. Can't remember what it is. That's basically what's happening to this impala. It's similar to the piloerection that you see on Nyala bulls when they are displaying to each other and they puff up their fur along the ridge of their back and along their neck to basically look really intimidating and to make themselves look as large as possible. Now, impala don't really do that. When their fur is puffed up like this, it is because they're cold. And I don't blame them. It's now even raining, isn't it, Seb? I hear drops. Oh, maybe it was philo-erection. Oh, maybe I got that wrong. Ah, maybe I had the right word all along and I didn't realize it. Here we go. I did have the right word all along. My brain's not functioning. It's shut down. Shame. You can really see how these impala have to struggle for what they're trying to eat, and especially for a female like this. Look at, she's trying to get right in there to grass that looks decidedly unappetizing. Now, I've noticed that there are some bellies that are fit to burst at this point, not because they are full, but because they are phenomenally pregnant. I suppose you can't really be phenomenally pregnant. You're either pregnant or you aren't. But they're all in the late stages of their pregnancy. And I know that there's bets going about when the impala lambs are going to be born. I feel as though I gave an answer and then I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what I said. I think I guessed, but now I don't remember the date. I genuinely don't remember the date that I suggested. So basically, as soon as we see an impala lamb, that's the date I said. That's the way it works. When I see an impala lamb, I can't remember what I said. Kirsty's not going to let me get away with that. Oh, poor girls. Trying to sustain themselves on actually essentially nothing. I'm going to try and guess when the impala lambs are going to be born, because really I have nothing much else to do here. As you can see, it has been a very slow afternoon on Djuma. Fortunately, Mr. Henry, for his first afternoon in the Mara, is better off.
There we have two marsh pride animals fighting with each other, lions, the sub-adults, having a little bit of a game. They've come right up to the road, which is fantastic stuff, so we're catching them in the infrared light. That's why their eyes are glowing as though they are little devils coming out yesterday evening, which was, of course, Halloween. Orly, Pat and I celebrated Halloween on an aeroplane. It was quite comfortably the most uncomfortable Halloween I've ever spent. I still have a sore left butt cheek. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say butt cheek on this program, so I apologize for saying butt cheek on the program. I will never say butt cheek again. But it's true. And, you probably didn't want to know. Anyway, the traditional relieving of the bowels and the bladder before playtime commences afresh. Oh, this is wonderful. Isn't that great? I'm pretty sure they're heading straight back towards that giraffe carcass. They definitely do have full bellies, so I'm sure they have been sat, well, they've definitely been sat on the carcass, but maybe they're going to go for another last go. The male was calling, we could hear him calling, and they called back to him, and then got up to start moving towards him. Maybe we'll have a bit of hyena-lion boxing. That'll be quite nice. I like to have a good box from time to time. Alrighty, I think we're going to carry on around the giraffe carcass and see what happens there. 2 carcasses. Here we go. Are you ready? There we go. Oh, there's a lion coming across the road. Let me get out of the way. There it is. It's that thing there. Minamu, to answer that question, we would have to explore the whole of the Mara. I'm not sure how many lion prides there are in the entire Masai Mara. Up here, in the triangle, we have got the Salt Lick Pride, the Adonya Payek Pride, whose name I've butchered horribly. We've got the Owino Pride, the Sausage Tree Pride, the Olala Pride, the Marsh Pride, the Mogoros, the Paradise, both sides of the river, and am I leaving any out there? I feel like I'm leaving out the Quechua Pride? Quechua Coalition. Has the pride disappeared, those 3 females? 2 still be around. So let's say 8 or 9, maybe 10 prides, depending on the time of the year. What was so very interesting during the migration, though, is that the defined territories that were so easy to predict during or pre the migration all went out the window. So Brent, I remember him telling me at exactly the same place he found this, I think it was the Salt Licks, the Owinos, and the Sausage Tree Pride at various times. This is just magic. I tell you what, if I was a lion, this is where I'd want to live. Lots to eat, beautiful landscape, grass to lion and roll in. If I was a wildebeest, not so much. Alrighty, I think let's move on and see if we can find the giraffes again. Shouldn't be too hard on account of the fact that they're dead and therefore unlikely to move very far. Now, I'd forgotten about the incredibly powerful lights that these cars have. Ah, look at that. Let's see what these ones do. Oh, no, that's not going to help us. Oh, there's me. Yeah, very nice. That's not going to help us there. Oh, that's going to help us less. Alright, so we'll leave those lights on that we have there. I've got the spots light. And with this, we shall find interesting things. I'm going to drive relatively quickly because I want to be at the giraffe when the lions get there, if they get there. We can't follow them off-road in this area anyway, so it's a good time to leave them. Right, I believe that Sidders is being very stoic this evening and doing his best to find a spotted cat.
Yeah, it is very, very quiet here at the moment where I am. I am now heading towards the Buffelshoek Dam to see if maybe we cannot find Tingana or any other cat that side. I have been to the Galago Pen, it was also very quiet and no tracks around the dam at all. So maybe because of these strong winds, the animals, predators, They must be somewhere by the dry riverbeds. I'm gonna check the Buffalo's Hook Dam and see if we can also check the Mulwat area. Jamie is lucky with the hyenas.
Phew! Lucky indeed. Look who is here. None other than Pretty herself and one of her little ones settled down for a long suckling dinner session. Having a proper clean from Mum there, cleaning underneath her tail, or its tail. Pretty certain it's a she, but we'll still wait to confirm that. So at least we know for certain that she has moved the cubs here. Little tiny bit concerning that I can only see one. I mentioned when was it? Yesterday morning? When was I last on drive? I can't remember. Spent a lot of time with the trainees recently. I've had to leave them in Brent's hands this afternoon. Whenever I was last on drive, I mentioned that I was wrong and that both of the cubs were pretties, both of the older cubs, but that I sat for 40 minutes watching the smaller one trying to suckle and not succeeding at all, which would explain the severe difference in the development of her two cubs. One is much, much stronger than the other, much larger and much more developed to an enormous extent. I'm a little bit concerned, but we're not gonna jump to conclusions yet. It's dangerous with hyenas. It's actually dangerous out here, full stop, to jump to a conclusion without any firm evidence. For now, we'll just enjoy a moment with a Pretty and Pretty's larger cub. Good afternoon, Saskia, or morning or evening, wherever you are. Saskia wants to know if hyenas share responsibility for the raising of their cubs. Yes and no. It is quite unusual for spotted hyenas to allosuckle in the same way lionesses do. In other words, allow cubs that are not theirs to suckle from them. It very seldom happens. It only really happens where you have a low-ranked female and a high-ranked cub. Does that make sense? So the adult female is the low ranker and the cub is the high ranker, because remember, cubs inherit their status. So it's only in those situations where allosuckling is allowed because the low-ranked female is scared of repercussions if it disciplines the cub. So those are sort of unusual situations where allosuckling does occur. But they do look after each other in other ways. I mean, there's a reason that hyenas share communal den sites for their cubs. Their cubs grow up together, they learn together, and their survival strategy is such that it makes more sense for them to be surrounded by peers of their own age. First of all, it allows them to learn about the complexities of the world into which they have been born. But also it means that there's always a mother around keeping an eye out for potential threats. And for little cubs, I always think that little cubs that have older sort of clan members with them have a much better chance of survival, because when cubs are small, they are quite unaware of the world around them. Like puppies or kittens at a certain age, or babies, they're not really aware of what's going on around them. But as the cubs get older, they become more alert to the dangers out here. So they can alert the little ones, and as soon as they run in, then the mothers will, or then the little ones will react. So mothers in their own way will, through protecting their own offspring, actually protect the offspring of others. They also, of course, play a crucial part in hunting. They mostly are cooperative hunters, although I think in the sands they probably do a lot of individual hunting and very little sharing. They also defend the clan's territory when it comes time. So while it might not be the most active contribution to another's cubs, there is something to it. Now, what you will find is that hyenas that are young females, young males do it as well, young females will come to the den site and actually play with the cubs and roll them over a little bit and let them bite their ears. Males and young females do it. and particularly where you have a close relationship between the mother of the cubs and the young female. That essentially is where they're friends. They don't have to necessarily be related, but they're friends with each other, which does happen. Hyenas do have allies. Oh, this is great, Seb, for the rehearsal. It means you don't have to move anywhere. Nico viewer, would like to know what it is that hyenas worry about. They are saved the concerns of tax and whether or not we are actually careering towards the ultimate global destruction of the planet. So they saved concerns like that, but you would like to know what it is that they worry about. They worry mainly about lions. Lions are the biggest threat to adult hyenas. They also they can be quite stressed where you look at large clans that have complex hierarchies. And studies have shown that the most stressed out individuals, the ones with exhibiting all the signs of stress, are the mid-ranked hyenas, because they have to remember their place in the clan. So they have to remember if they're high-ranked or low-ranked. But ultimately a hyena worries about lions, food, whether or not it's got a comfy place to sleep, and if it's a female hyena with cubs, whether or not her cubs are okay. So pretty simple, pretty basic priorities in their lives. I apologize again for the vehicle pole. It is the roof of our car, because it's about the heavens are about to open up once again. That's something for a hyena to be worried about. Not because it's any danger to them, but because it's a little bit unpleasant. Although that's not true. Hyenas love rainy weather. They really do. It's fantastic hunting opportunities for them. They can go galloping off and take advantage of the chaos and the confusion that weather like that causes. Oh, pretty girl. Okay, as Pretty settles in to feed her cub, hopefully we get a chance to see the other one pop out before the end of this safari, but let's go across to Tristan to see if he's had any more luck than we have.
Well, no, Jamie. Unfortunately, we have had no luck. My ability to hustle an animal has not matched your ability to hustle animals out of this gloomy day, and Jamie has had much more success than what I have. So what we're doing now is we've driven around all over the place, really. There's not many tracks to see. I've looked, and what that tells me is that I'm pretty sure that all of our leopards are sitting on kills at the moment. Probably find Tingana and Osana together somewhere. We just don't know where that is. We've checked all over the place. I went to the last places that Tingana was hanging around. Can't find too many tracks. We did have baboons alarm calling during the course of the middle of the day in that area as well. Found the baboon tracks, but nothing that I could find for a actual leopard, and so we drove around, nothing that's there. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just doing basically a boundary run just to see if anything comes over at this time of the day. It's a good time for things to move, and if nothing, then I'm going to go back to that central area, and I'm just going to park and turn off for a few minutes and just listen as to what's going on, and maybe we'll get lucky. We have got a rehearsal tonight, so it would be nice if we could find a animal somewhere that we could have a little look at. So that's the plan. I have a funny feeling that Hosana made a kill, because he was last seen off Pangolin track by Brent. That was the last time we saw him, so I have a funny feeling that he might be somewhere there, and it's quite close to where I left Tingana last night, and so I wouldn't be a surprise if the two of them are hanging out on a kill, but they might go for water a little bit later and head towards the pan. So that's the idea. Anyway, while we go and figure out how we're going to hustle a leopard, James, well, hasn't had to do much hustling at all, because everything has gone to where he thought it would go, at the two dead giraffes. So let's go across to him.
We're hoping desperately that the lions are going to come and hustle here, because, well, I'm a bit put off by the fact that there isn't even a hyena at this carcass. Now, we have our rehearsal for our TV show in about half an hour. I'm hoping by then there'll be a great bevy of predators fighting over this biltong or beef jerky that lies before us here. The lions were coming this way. We did see them on the way here, coming across the block. But they have yet to arrive, and they have yet to call again. So we're just going to sit quietly, see if they call. If they do, we'll go looking for them. If they don't, hopefully they'll come here. Righty. Well, that is going to be sort of it from this end of the Sunrise Safari. It's the Sunset Safari though, isn't it? Yes. We have 1 minute left. Oh, no, we're not. Okay. Was there an animal coming here? No, not just yet. It's been marvellous having you with us, of course, as it always is. I've now started this too early, of course, which means that you and I are going to be left with an awkward pause towards the end of the drive where I don't know what to say, and you kind of think, well, is he finished? Is he carrying on? Is it over? And then it'll just be awkward. So I'm just going to keep talking like this, probably for the next, I'm going to say 5 seconds or so, after which I'll start saying things like, it's been really wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for your questions and comments. We will see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock Central African time. Until then, goodbye.